Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. Momentarily, you'll see our buddy Marvin McNutt joining us. Yes, that Marvin McNutt, Iowa's greatest receiver of all time, leads in all categories or most meaningful categories in receptions, touchdowns, yards. You have a unique perspective because you came into Iowa as a quarterback, switched to wide receiver. Not that different from what's happening at Iowa now. Was said today at today's presser as we record this on November 5th. On Tuesday, Kirk Ferentz said Jackson Stratton will be the backup if something happens to Brendan Sullivan. So, Marvin, talk to us about the perspective you have or former wide receivers have switching from quarterback to wide receiver back and forth.
One of the things that I look at is that, for me at least, I was able to go, actually going back into the quarterback room, or at least the quarterback position. So I got to do it actually in college, our last couple practices, because I was the backup just in case, something happened to James in our bowl game. I actually came in and threw a few balls to some of my guys, and it actually felt so much better going back into the position because you understood from some level of hey, how to get open, where the receivers like to get the ball from, where and timing of it, and how you can get the ball to them. And it was just a mastery of it. So I even got to do it during the practices at the Philadelphia Eagles. I was scout team quarterback during the weeks we played Robert Griffin. During the time that we would be in practice, I would be in there throwing. Even during one of the 7-on-7s, I torched our defense in that 7-on-7 as a QB. So, it was, as that perspective, there's definitely a growth that you get mentally a little bit just from going to the other side of being out there.
Well, for you being an all-around athlete, they said probably after the bye week, Kate could be back. But if Brendan Sullivan gets hurt, it would be Jackson Stratton or James Rezar going back from quarterback to wide receiver, back to quarterback. It's wild stuff, but let's stick with more of the positive and just presume that Brendan Sullivan doesn't get hurt. Talk to me a little bit about the defense before we get to offense, Marvin, because the defense has really righted its course in the last couple of weeks, hasn't it?
No, it absolutely has. It's about finding rhythm and finding what you're good at, and then doing that in such a way that it makes teams really, really difficult. Again, when we didn't have Sebastian Castro, and then on top of it, you had a freshman really getting his grounding into the weight of college football out there at corner. It's tough for a defense sometimes when they know who they can kind of pick on. Now, this team has started settling in, and also special teams has also started settling in. The punting, the kicking, the field coverage, all of it has been so good of complementary football that it has made this team an elite team again right away. Sullivan, and the way he has played has opened up another realm for this offense that they've needed, in a sense of what do you have to think about as a defense. And so that has created such a opening that we're now dangerous in all three phases of all of it. Because first off, we're getting turnovers that sometimes turn into points. We're getting stops, great field position. And then on top of it, we're making field position with the punts that we have. So kudos to this Hawkeye team for the way they've been playing.
So what does Brendan Sullivan, since you have firsthand knowledge of what it's like to play for different quarterbacks, the pass comes in differently from Cade than Brendan. Yep. Your quarterbacks were different. Talk a little bit about the energy they bring, the vibe. You got to rally together as a team. Talk to us about that, please, Marvin.
Well, you do. You have to rally together as a team. And with Lester's offense, what he's even done even more so is he's been able to tailor his play action better. Also, I've watched the play action plays that are coming in, and sometimes even just the movement you're getting from your offensive line with some of the rollouts that have kind of come with it, and the speed that Sullivan has getting to the edge, again, creates a dangerous situation for all defenses to think about. But also I've seen different packages out of it that, it's right now, it hasn't always looked as smooth in all the moments, but what it does is create a lot of open opportunities for receivers to get the ball in space and then show what they can do. I mean, that touchdown they got to Gill finally, right? It was because they're so keyed in on the fact that Sullivan has an opportunity to run here. Hey, we need to stop this. Boom, next thing you know, hey, there's an open receiver right now. And that energy, that switch from quarterback, going back and forth, for me, my biggest goal was, how do I make James comfortable, right? Especially when he was a freshman, right? Me and James, we also had a lot of practice time together because we were with the twos a lot of times during the practice stuff. So in that year, me and him practiced a lot together. On top of it, it was just okay, he hasn't been in these situations. How do you make him get, I always wanted my quarterbacks to feel like you can throw me a ball any way possible. I'll figure out how to catch it for you. Right. Like you just get it to me in these moments and I promise you the good things will happen. And that's where, again, the whole identity of this offense has gotten to attack mode right now, which I love. It's attack mode offense, right? Sometimes with where Cade was in his injury status, I feel like because he was not willing to take off as much as possible, like as much as I thought he could have, these things, like you could tell we weren't always attacking people because it felt like we had to wait, and as an offense. And so, no, I thought this was, this has been fun to watch. And then as a receiver, there are challenges to a new QB that moves a little bit more. Cade, you can tell, hey, I'm a pocket guy and we're going to get in this pocket. And the timing might be a little bit better. Where Sullivan's like, hey, we might be playing a little recess out here, guys. So y'all need to be ready to run around after something. And let's play a little bit.
Yeah.
But you love that as a receiver, right? Because you always have an opportunity to get something down the field. If he is now, he can run that thing a little bit. So some of these times it's going to be just blocking. They're scoring points, man. And when you're scoring points as an offense, when you're winning, when you're beating people 40 something to whatever, you're excited. This is an offense that we haven't seen the likes of numbers. For a really long time in Coach Ferentz ever.
Talk about Kaleb Johnson, unreal.
Oh my God, absolutely unbelievable. And he's a tank. He understands his moments, right? Hey, there's plays. Jazz Patterson just made a play. Hey, I got the defense on the heels. Hey, get out, young fella. Let me take this thing over and run through here for you. Let me show you what this truck is like. But he just is a smooth Cadillac. I call him Escalade the way he rolls. That boy just glides down the highway. The way he's just so, has some smooth sides to him. And man, when he decides that he wants to be a bully, he can be a bully. Right now, he has truly, engulfed his role, I feel like, in this offense. And not only that, all the running backs, man, they impress me every week, Dave. The way in which I watch them hit a hole, watch for it, stick, shoulders down, get behind the butt of a lineman, and then boom, they're out of there with explosiveness. It's not something that kids just get. You have to be taught a lot of times, especially in an offense that's constantly changing. Where are your holes going to be? Where are the guys coming from? Where's your next move going to be? I'm seeing it develop into greatness, and I am really excited because you're also seeing these receivers out there blocking and tight ends. Like you say, we're down 2 tight ends, a receiver.
Yep.
But yet you didn't see lack thereof in that offense this weekend. So it's a way we are truly engulfing. Like you said, transfer portal's been good to us. We've recruited well.
He's Marvin McNutt, all-time great receiver in Iowa history. Marvin, thank you so much. We'll talk with you soon.
Hey, thank you, Dave. Appreciate you having me on, man.
My pleasure as always. For Marvin McNutt, I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back with more Hawkeye in just a few moments.
Hawkeyed is brought to you by Better Edge, your ultimate social betting marketplace. With no VIG, you're bound to win more on every bet on Better Edge. Join the action now. Sign up at betteredge.com/Hawkeyed and get $10 to start winning more today. Better Edge, where your social betting means your bets go further and you win more.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. So momentarily, you'll see our buddy Doug Wagner joining us. Doug, the voice of WMT and the iHeartMedia network throughout Eastern Iowa, throughout Iowa, actually. And Hawkeye pregame show, Hawkeye postgame show, pregame show, Bumper Brigade, postgame show. That is the Hawkeye Huddle with Doug and Marvin McNutt and me. And, of course, Doug following Marvin today. Marvin was on in the first segment with us, former Hawkeye legendary receiver. Give me the vibe of your whole feel from the fans, but also your perspective of the games, Doug.
Well, the fans before the game, it was amazing because there were a lot of Wisconsin fans who were there, a lot more, I think, than maybe the Iowa State game was the closest one that you can find because they're next door neighbors, right? That's exactly what they are. They're our friends from across the Mississippi. And they were fired up for the game. They thought that they had an opportunity. Vegas thought they had an opportunity with the 3-point favorite being Iowa. And it's one of those things where it's kind of like presidential polls, you have election week this week and all the polls that are out there. And then a surprise one comes out of Des Moines and all of a sudden everybody's all a dither. Well, sometimes Vegas makes mistakes like that, too. And that was obviously one of those. I don't think that they saw what happened. And really, it's difficult to see many Iowans thinking that as well. For everything to come together just exactly the way that it did. And once again, the only complaint that people had is Brendan Sullivan, 7 of 10 for 93 yards. Can we pass the ball? No, you don't need to pass the ball more. No. When you've got Kaleb Johnson, you got Moulton, you got Jazz Patterson, you just get on those horses and ride.
I haven't seen the Hawks have this much fun on offense, Doug, in many a year. Let's be honest.
Oh, absolutely. 3 consecutive games scoring 40 plus. And it's something where, for a lot of people, they're looking at the betting thing. I'm like, always look at the Iowa under for the first half and go ahead and take the over for the second half, because they're going to do it. 14 points in the second, third, fourth quarter. Defense just really holding everything down to an absolute. Braden Locke was completely confused. Now, what's interesting about this is you've got a UCLA quarterback, Garbers, who can get some moves out there, 1,700 yards, 65% completion percentage. But again, they're 11th in the Big Ten, okay? They are there for a reason. They have not won at home. Iowa is dismal going to the West Coast, typically, especially when you play in Pasadena, but it's Rose Bowl games. Okay, let's just go to the Rose Bowl and we'll play in Pasadena. Iowa's got to be able to take advantage of this. They don't have much of a rushing game other than the quarterback to write home about, and this Iowa defense, they stay focused. They can get out there. You're playing in weather that's going to be nice and warm. Take advantage of that. Have some more fun, but focus on the game and keep doing it. And by the way, I mean, the other thing too is our punters just doing phenomenally.
Yeah, Reese Dakin is having a year.
Yeah. Having the ability to go out to California and pin the Bruins back deep every time possible is going to be something that's going to be working well for that defense too, because they're going to be able maybe even get a pick 6 coming up in this game. And it'd be awfully nice to see Cade Weechen break another one.
It's unbelievable to watch Caleb Johnson.
Especially with this blocking scheme that Iowa does, with his zone blocking scheme. And he waits. He's so patient. He waits for that hole to develop so he can see it. And he sees the game so much more slowly than everybody else does. It's like he's in like everybody else is in slow motion. He's running full speed. And then when he gets through there, he can get to that second level and he can take people out and he can do a little Heisman pose as well.
There you go.
The thing is, Carson Schlesinger is their linebacker, their top tackler for UCLA, and he's the guy that they're going to have to key on. Their top 2 tacklers or linebackers, you got to go down to like 9th in the list to find a D lineman, and then even then they disappear after that. So this D line doesn't do a whole lot of work that way. They're not sack machines either. So Brendan Sullivan and Kaleb Johnson and Moulton and Patterson, they're going to have to be able the availability to do some really good work there. But to get to that second level and to be able to get outside of where Schlesinger is, Carson Schlesinger, and be able to get around him and Kane Medrano as well, they're going to be able to do that, get into that defensive backfield, take some people out, and have some good 25-plus yard runs, just like he's had all year.
Hawks want to exercise, and Kirk Ferentz references today's press availability, maybe exercising some past demons in Rose Bowl. But as you mentioned, this is a regular season game, not a Rose Bowl game. This is where UCLA plays their home games. UCLA coming off a big victory at Nebraska last week, Doug. They won 27-20. They're 3-5 overall, 2-4 in the Big Ten. Hawks come in after thumping Wisconsin, as we mentioned, 42-10. Doug, Hawks at 6-3, 4-2 in the Big Ten. They seem like they are really clipping along at an apex. Offense, defense, and special teams playing together. What are your thoughts going into this week as not a prediction per se, but right. I think like me, you seem very positive.
I think UCLA is going to have these conflicting things because that was a big win for them on the road. They're playing better on the road. So their coaching staff is going to say, hey, let's bring this home and do it at home because we're over. We got the donut at home in Pasadena. We've got to be able to do this. But that puts a lot of pressure on them, too. So I think that's maybe a little bit of a wash. I think that you're going to have to make sure that the right Iowa team shows up because, again, you go on the road, that team shows up, same one that showed up over in East Lansing. We're going to have some problems, and we can't afford that. So I think the coaching staff's going to be working really hard to make sure they stay focused. They bask in that California sun, but they know they are out there to work and having fun. That's the big thing. They weren't having fun when they were at East Lansing. Have a little Cali fun, bring home the dub, and let's show the Bruins that why they're 11th in the Big Ten, and we're tied for 5th right now, moving up.
From your lips to God's ears. I like the way you think, Doug. So I'm going to let you tee us up what you got coming up this week, because another primetime game for the Hawkeyes, this time on Friday night, late primetime game, 8 o'clock Central kick on Fox Network against UCLA in California, as you mentioned. So light us up. Give us the pregame schedule. I know you've already told me the Hawkeye Huddle postgame. We're going to be doing that the day after, but give us a little 411 on what's going on at WMT and you, please, Doug.
Yep, 5 p.m. on News Radio 600 WMT, as well as the other stations in the Iowa Sports Radio Network that I've got my fingers into, AM 800 KXIC and Sports Radio 95.7. It starts at 5 p.m. Friday. We go from 5 to 6, kick it over to Learfield and Michelle Altmaier for her pregame 6 to 8. The kick at 8 p.m. It's too late for an old man like me to be up after that game. So Saturday from 11 to 1, I'll be over at the Loose Chain on Cedar Rapids Northeast side doing the Altor for Cat Hawkeye Huddle, powered by Firehouse Subs live. Now, meanwhile, there's other things going on too. On KXIC, beginning at 1 p.m., we've got Iowa Stanford Wrestling. So you can go over to KXIC for that, and all the basketball that you want too. I mean, we've got all the basketball on WMT, KXIC, and KOSY. It's a program director's nightmare time of year because you've got so many plates of spaghetti up in the air.
But we love it as sports fans, Doug. So selfishly, sorry to you and the other PDs coordinating this, but I must tell you, Doug, is it not great to have Hawkeye wrestling men's and women's, Hawkeye men's and women's basketball during the middle of the week and even interspersed over the weekend as we have Hawkeye football games? As a sports fan, Doug, I've got to tell you selfishly, man, what a time of year to be a sports fan.
Friday Night Lights this week, Dave. Let's do it and go out to Pasadena and get ourselves a dub for the Hawks. All right, on Iowa.
On Iowa, indeed, my friend. Go Hawks. There he is, folks. Doug Wagner, voice of WMT and the Hawkeye Sports Radio Network. Always love catching up with Doug. So thanks to Doug Wagner, also to Marvin McNutt. We'll close out the show with my production partners and the guys at Better Edge and BetterEdge.com and James Seils and Greg Kajewski. We'll be back with more to close out Hawkeye. I'm Dave O'Hara in just a few moments.
Hi, this is Joe Mershman from Mershman Seeds. Substitutions cost you money. Why take their seconds when you can have our first choice? Here's Ben Paper to tell you more about Mershman Power Core Enlist corn.
We are way ahead of Big Seed on this one. This corn has 4 different post-herbicide tolerances, multiple modes of action for above-ground pests, and it is some of the highest-yielding corn genetics that are out on the market today.
If you're one of the many that got substituted on your corn hybrid last spring, contact your local Mershman Seeds dealer today and ask them about Power Core Enlist corn. From Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Momentarily, you'll see our buddies James Seils and Greg Kajewski joining us. For some of my production partners, and they're at Better Edge and BetterEdge.com, social sports betting site. And I must tell you, James, as we'll talk to you first and then bring in Greg here in a little bit. Hawkeyes are moving the needle, and you're a Hawkeye alum, so you got to feel double good, James.
Yeah, absolutely. I think anytime it's one thing when the team is doing well, but when you have an individual player that's also making some national attention always helps, not just the team perform, but it helps the economy around the team, right? Merchandise sales, us, when, the more people that are betting on Iowa, the more, activity we're getting. So that helps us as a company as well. And so, yeah, for us, we're just really enjoying, seeing the Hawks do pretty well, and especially watching Kaleb Johnson kind of crush it. And hopefully, he keeps doing it throughout the end of the year here, and maybe, get up and make that argument between him and Genty a little bit more meat on it, and then get more national attention, which then helps everyone around it as well.
You've hit it right there, James. And I'll stick with you just for a few more seconds before I go to Greg. What kind of action are you guys getting? Now, it's changed. Again, I've talked to other friends and other shows at other sports books, and Ashton Genty, of course, Boise State getting a lot of the attention, and Cam Ward, another favorite. But now that Ewers has kind of dropped off the map from Texas and a few other players' teams have lost, Kaleb Johnson ascending that ladder in the top 10 at least, and hopefully we get him in the top 5 and soon in the top couple. But what are you seeing, any movement as far as the lines go for you guys at Better Edge with Kaleb Johnson for a Heisman, or how's that playing out for you guys, James?
Yeah, he's not in the top 10. I would say, in exchanges, you're going to get more activity on the top 5. So I think you probably find more value when you're going down there in the 20 to 10 range, just because the volume isn't there to move them as much. But yeah, I think, we're starting to see a little more uptick on the Heisman stuff as we get closer, and it'll definitely really uptick here as we start getting closer to rivalry week and, the college football playoff selection committee coming out. And so I think that's first one's tonight. And so that always upticks viewers and upticks conversations around the Heisman. So I think when the more of the national media is talking about it, the more we'll see volume traded on those markets.
I think you hit it right there. Talking again to other friends at other books, larger volume books. He's ascending into the top 10. And as you mentioned, I think once this first poll comes out, and then also another primetime game for Kaleb, it'll be in LA, bright lights, big city, Friday night kick in LA at the Rose Bowl, 8 o'clock on Fox National TV. That could also help jettison him even more so into the spotlight, provided he and the Hawks have a big game. I think that's important to note as well, James.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be tough. I mean, I think UCLA is top 15 in rush defense in the country. Yep. If you just look at their schedule, if you look at their record, I mean, I think we made that mistake with Michigan State. And then you look at UCLA's record, they're coming off 2 really good wins. Minnesota's looking better and better. That loss doesn't look that bad. And then their other 4 losses are against all teams ranked in the top 15. So it's not going to be easy. It's going to be tough sledding. So we'll see if, Sullivan is still a guy out there and if, they can still pound the run game. But it will be a tough test for him. And I hope the national media understands that, getting 100 yards and a touchdown is actually probably a really good game against that UCLA defense. So hopefully we can get to that level.
Well stated by you, James. Great analysis. So now we go to Greg Kajewski, your production partner, your business partner, my other production partner. Greg, when I talked earlier and when I introduced James and brought him into the segment and you guys into the segment, I talked about how different you guys are compared to the average sports book, where there's no juice, no vig, no house. You can take the percentages, and then bettors have the advantage of taking their winnings and donating that juice or percentage to a charity. And I think that's the thing I really like to highlight with you guys, Greg. And I know we've had you on before talking about this, and I don't want to pigeonhole you just talking about one thing, but I think that's so important to restate and overstate constantly about the great work you guys are doing, Greg.
I always appreciate the floor to talk about charitable work and doing good things in the community. So appreciate that. Appreciate you having us on, Dave. With Better Edge, you put $100 in the Hawks, you're going to get paid back out close to 100 on that spread. So we'll put out and say, hey, congrats, you won $4 or $5 more by betting on Better Edge. And we'll say, do you want to donate it to a charity? So really looking to spend a lot of energy this month, actually branding it out into our Better Edge for Good and giving a lot of feature highlights to the great charities that we work with. It's been TB1F here in Minnesota, which is part of Masonic Children's Hospital, and supporting BRAC. So just an amazing cause that we're really, really excited about, and had Chad Greenway in the past, his Lead the Way Foundation, as well as Folds of Honor and multiple different ones. So excited to not only continue to shed light on that, but then obviously grow it as well.
Greg, of course, when you mentioned Chad Greenway, all Hawkeye fans, their ears perk up. Yes, former legendary and all-pro linebacker for the Vikings, but also legendary linebacker for the Iowa Hawkeyes. And to me, Greg, when I see, James talked about growth, and let's you and I go a little bit there too, of growth of at Better Edge or betteredge.com. When you take a look at volume and the numbers you guys, and when we had you on a couple weeks ago, you kind of highlighted this as well, and I want to reiterate this too. You didn't kind of reiterate it or talk about it. It was a focal point. I think it's great. The volume you guys have seen has increased, especially from the Hawks, from Midwest. The better teams are playing. Isn't that funny how that works, Greg? The better their teams are playing, as you smile with me, the volume increases. Let's talk a little bit about the great work you guys are doing as a whole.
Yeah. When you look at sports betting markets and just sports fans' interest, when teams win, they tell their friends, they get more engaged, they go out to bars, they spend more money doing things. And, we're right at the sports equinox of all the major sports, as well as they're performing really well.
James, if you're a sports fan, even if you're a casual sports fan, what a time to be alive, my friend.
Yeah, for an average fan, you turn on YouTube TV and your home is like every single sporting event that's going on. And then you remember back in, mid to end of July and you're like, wow, there's nothing on.
Yeah. And now there's everything on. Funny from nothing to everything. Greg, I think the other thing I want to close out with you on is the social betting aspect of the tagline for you at Better Edge and betteredge.com. That's nothing against other sports books, professional sports books, but I think some people can be intimidated. And here's where I think you guys at Better Edge have really had the advantage about it being a social betting aspect. And for some people, it may not be as high pressure or as tense for them.
Our platform just makes that a lot easier, whether it's $5 for a buddy at the bar or it's $5 for a buddy who's at home, or, somebody else on the platform. So we're just connecting you, making that more seamless, more easy, and putting more coin back in your pocket. So it's a win-win. We had a meeting this week and, explained the concept, got somebody's hands on it, and they took one look and said, why isn't everybody using you? This is a no-brainer.
James Seils. James, thanks for joining us. Good to see you again, my friend.
Thanks, Dave. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks indeed. There's our alum right there, James Seils. And Greg, you're from Iowa as well as me. We didn't go to the U of I, but we're Hawks through and through. Greg, always good to see you. Greg Kajewski, thanks so much, my friend.
Likewise. Thanks for having us.
Truly my pleasure. For Greg Kajewski and James Seils at BetterEdge and BetterEdge.com. My production partners, but A1 good guys, and they are the principals involved and the co-founders of BetterEdge. So love talking to them whenever we can, as well as Doug Wagner, the voice of WMT. Thanks again to Doug, and Marvin McNutt, legendary Iowa Hawkeye receiver, the greatest of all time statistically, and any other metric you use. Marvin McNutt, thanks to him as well. And to you, the viewers, thanks for tuning in. I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. That's all from me. Thanks to all of you.